The year is 2502 IC. By the grace of Sigmar Heldenhammer, Karl Franz, son of his predecessor, Luitpold I, has ascended the throne. Unfortunately for me, a devout Verenian, a worshipper of justice and learning, I was a bit too loud in my denouncement of such an ignoble election. Indeed, when I cast my vocal support for Boris Todbringer, I was assured that his win was certain, and that Ulrich, the god that Sigmar himself worshipped, would be the forefront of the empire to come. I was perhaps a bit too loud, a bit too rambunctious at court. After the window tax riots, in which I, embarrassingly, was a part of, I saw the writing on the wall. Taking with me a seldom few materials, from a writing kit, a backpack, and the various guild ledgers that accentuate my status as a journeyman scribe and scholar, I have set out for the east to find safety and fortune in less political lands. Wissenland was far too tumultuous for me to rest in. The endless foundries were one thing, but the greenskin raids on what was once Solland was far too dangerous. And the court of Wissenland, too, contained dark rumors. I had only stayed a week at a nearby tavern before continuing my journey onwards. I traveled through the town of Fieldorf, north through Averheim, and finally into Wordbad, capital city of the Elector province of Stirland. Indeed, I was rather confident in my stride as I walked down that barely maintained road, slick with mud and the filth of the unclean. The rurality of the province gave me a certain level of pride. Half of the burghers in this town couldn't read. Many of the hares and frauleins were nobles by only the thinnest of margins, and they still wrote in an old imperial style that many in the Reich considered to be outdated. Their constant conflicts with the much richer Averland and the hilariously ill-tempered halflings of the Moot made them poorer than any other state. I had it firm in my heart that my services would be needed here in spades. Imagine my shock, then, when I was branded a heretic for my views on Sigmarite dogma, my Verenian attempts of old-style Chilean debate, and my quote-unquote disgusting way with which I treated my fellow ladies at court. It was simply in Altdorfer fashion, I shouted back as I was run out of Wordbad with little more than the clothes at my back. I am not sure if the church in Stirland had actually branded me heretic, or if that was simply an idle threat from that drunk well-to-do, but I knew laying low was probably my best option. Stirland is a big province. It extends west to east, touching multiple other counties, and, most importantly, gets more and more rural. I kept moving, and as I did, towns became villages, and superstitions became nearly widespread. People would look at me odder than usual, and more than a few backwaters that hosted me treated me with looks of cold steel and slammed doors. As I went from backwater to backwater, the places became smaller, more dilapidated, more hostile. Strange fetishes, bands of garlic, and other such antiquated religious symbology replaced the more common Death's Head of Mor or Sigmar's hammer. It drew within me ounces of worry as the grass grew more sparse and the land became colder. Maybe Sigmar's light is a bit better than I thought. What a time I lived in, where my Chilean ideologies began to give way just from the mere presence of this strange and hyper-superstitious environment. Still, I trudged on, eager to find a place that would accept a Reiklander such as I. That is when it all changed. As I crossed the damnable bridge across the river, I noticed the sky. It was dark, cloudy, sunless. I checked the map. I was indeed in Stirland. This was still Stirland, but the very air was different. It was humid and moist. The grass looked less green and more a deadish, tempting blue. I looked behind me and saw the last village of normalcy on the horizon. The rejection of their people is still fresh in my mind. There was only one direction to go now, towards the gloomy lands forward, under the light of that green moon, which seemed to smile at me from behind the clouds. Now, I am not a geologist, nor an alchemist, nor a well-traveled ambassador, nor a rogue, nor a mercenary, nor a soldier. My life was a relatively cushy one of financial support and of studying the areas of imperial law and finance. And yet I had wished there and then that I was well versed in history or geology or alchemy or whatever strange nonsense was happening in the land around me. It was noon, and the sun refused me light, and the stranger part still, not a single Stirlander had warned me of this. All of them had snubbed me, turned their backs on me, and said nothing as I continued onward. They all acted as if this piece of Stirland, cold and forgotten, never existed. The green of the trees gave way to deadened branches. Their canopies became dark. The roads, once open and clear, became marshy, swampy, and even more ill-kempt. Every road was a wet tunnel surrounded by thick, dead vegetation. The only animal that seemed to notice my presence were an occasional murder of crows, their eyes of pure, blazing blue. What sort of bird had eyes like that? And what was the shape that I saw in the trees? A bloodied quadruped, its mouth nothing more than a skull. More blue eyes hidden within the trees. I blink, and they're gone. Just exhaustion, I tell myself, and yet fear gnawed at the back of my mind. What in Verena's name had I walked into? I hadn't the supplies for the journey home, nor the money. I had to continue onward. Find some solace. Civilization has to exist here. It has to. A listless fog settled over the forest canopy and sunk down deep into my bones. My feet sloshed through mud. My mind was nothing more than some broken homunculus consisting of some vague hope for safety and the spite I felt for my contemporaries at court. Always those blue eyes, too, staring at me from the shadows. Emptiness. Darkness. I felt as if the crows were simply waiting for me to drop dead so that they may feast on my corpse. Damn them, and damn the imperial courts. Damn the taxes, and the gods, and the people. Damn them all. I screamed that final piece aloud, and upon doing so, I managed to break from the forest canopy. My pack was nearly depleted, my weight far less than I would prefer, and my body was replete with a soreness I wasn't familiar with. But it was there. Civilization stared me back in the face, just on the horizon. How long had I traveled through the brush? The name Waldenhof stuck out to me on signage. I saw the silhouettes of people amidst town, and the roads cutting through. I hadn't even known this town existed. I could barely contain my glee, and as I trudged back onto that main road, I was taken aback by the sheer, oddity of the people I observed. Gaunt faces, children that looked meaner than the wolfish figures I saw in the woods, and the ever-silent pallor of fear permeated the entire populace. Where Stirland's rural nature was one of hostile snubbing, these Waldenhofers were silent. They only noticed my passing with a mean look, not even a nod or a word. So of course I shoved my way into the nearest tavern. I was more than eager to fill my supplies. The thought, a warm bed without bugs, food, maybe something a little stronger than beer. I couldn't contain my smile as I approached the innkeep. "Will you be staying with us long?" she asked me. Her eyes were sunken, glassy, and her voice was near monotone. I cared little. The amenities were all my mind was focused on. Ah, just a few days, maybe more. Thank you, my good Fraulein. You Stirlanders make good pancakes, I hear. I would love to try some. She barely registered the comment, but she did as I asked once I put money on the table. Surely she's never even seen a silver shilling in years. I turned about and surveyed the tavern. The Thorny Dream, they called it. The Empire was no stranger to tavern names that glorified the macabre, so I paid it no heed. What was perhaps more pressing was the lack of people in here, and for a moment I was dismayed to find not a single soul amid the tables, and the idea of spending the night completely without sociality did dim my spirit somewhat. Until I saw her. How could I have missed her? She sat in the corner, ensnared by shadow. Her eyes seemed to mimic the same glow as the tavern hearth's embers. Her smile was enough to light the room, and it was perhaps the first semblance of actual humanity I had seen in this accursed place. I navigated around the central hearth, feeling just a twinge of second-hand embarrassment for the outmoded tavern. I didn't let it get to me, though. I sat down and, with the most energetic smile I could muster, I offered my hand. I was afraid I would have to spend the room in the commons alone. My voice was chalk on board. Why did I feel so embarrassed around her? I am afraid not, here. Her voice was pure silk. My apologies. I have been on the road for so long. I am Annette von Siert. The apologies are all mine. I mistook you for a man, the way you are dressed and the sheer amount of mud you tracked in. Apologies, Fraulein Siert. I am Emanuel Posner, a member of the court here in Waldenhof of our great province of... She gave a soft chuckle. Of Stirland, I finished for her. Yes, she replied. Of Stirland. I must admit, Fraulein Posner, I'm rather surprised a local noble is spending her time here and not a refined place. Well, I had heard tell of a foreigner wandering these parts. We rarely get those, and my court just adores foreigners. What was that look in her eye? It was the same look my professor gave me, the same look that peasant boy gave me. No. We were both simply ladies-in-waiting, nothing more. Oh, and why is that? I gulped down my embarrassment. She took notice and gave a sly smile. I never felt my eyes drawn to women before, but her, there was something there, a burning desire, a passion that seemed to transcend mortality itself. For the first time in my life, I had seriously considered breaking that societal taboo just from that smile, and that fact alone had frightened me. Isn't it obvious? Emmanuel gave a little chuckle. She saw my blush and fluster as an Azray huntsman its prey. This place, Waldenhof, it's so boring. The Stirlander government itself rarely comes down here, so far east. And why is that? It's a backwater. The taxes are negligible, and the dangers of travel outweigh anything they could have earned. Well, that's true, but I made it. That you did. Which is quite commendable, you know. You must have a powerful will to remain so capable after your journey through that fog. What was she getting at? I decided to pay it no mind. Yes, it was a rather cold affair. I nodded. The embers seemed to brush away. The hearth seemed to darken. She leaned in. I couldn't help but do as she did, in tandem with her very movements. Come, let me show you to your room. Let us get that autumn chill out of you. My protestations were caught in my throat. Why couldn't I say no? Why was I wanting to go with her? As she stood up, so too had I. When she led me up the stairs, I followed like some dutiful dog. I hadn't even noticed the tavern keep, nor her prayers to some nameless thing, praying to safety for the horrors about to come, clutching in her hands an 8-pointed star. The walk to the hallway was a haze of butterflies in my stomach, and nervousness so dizzying I found it unable to think beyond the immediate. Normal questions and natural instinct fell to the wayside as I walked into that stultifying hallway, cloying with thicker and thicker fog. I could barely see. The occasional candle became a visual mess of blur, and I began to stumble on my own feet. And then I fell forward. I had lagged too far behind, my mind and body unable to keep with the sanguine lair she provided. But somehow she caught me with inhuman speed and precision. Lips met lips, and I could hear her whispers through my throat. At first I had thought she was speaking to me, but the language, the words, these were things I hadn't recognized. Perhaps save for a choice few edge terms that could be heard on my travels through Altdorf's Hexer Besricker district. I hadn't made that connection, not yet then. I hadn't the sight nor the knowledge. All I had in that moment was her. The door to the common room opened for us. I hadn't questioned the fact that there was only a single double bed, lavish and beautiful, something far more luxurious and private than what should have been a simple dormitory. A soft push was all she gave. My back fell onto the silk, and my inhibitions, alongside everything else, gave way to her will. She snapped her fingers. The mist and the fog fell away. The strange chanting in the back of my ear left. I was tied to the tussled bed. Moonlight shone through boarded windows. She was staring down at me, and for the first time, I saw her eyes. I saw them clearly. They were a crimson red. Thought came rushing back, and I finally realized something was amiss. What? How did... I tried to speak, but she rose a hand. Tell me, Annette. Any pleasantries she may have had fell away. She addressed me with a sharp bluntness, separate from before. Whom is my master and ruler of these lands? Of all these lands. Not just Waldenhof, but Drakenhof, Schwarzhofen, Tempelhof, Eschen. What an odd question, I thought. I was no political savvy, and so the answer seemed obvious. Albrecht Haupt Anderson, of course, Elector Count of Stirland, but I don't see incorrect. My fear caught my voice as she lunged down at me. Her pale skin was colder than midnight, and pressed up against me. A finger trailed against my inner leg and threatened to travel further with a swirling gait. My master, sweetling, my true master, is the lord of these lands, not of Stirland, silly mortal. Sylvania, my lord von Karstein. Even I, with my little knowledge of political matters, has heard the name, but that was impossible. What? But he died, way before our time. Yes, he did. But your empire killed that which cannot die. And so he waits, in the shadows, preparing for his moment. She spoke with such a near and blind reverence. I made the connection then. I was quivering in fear. Wait, so that means... Her palm was on my neck, a hiss against the thumping artery. My heart was beating so fast I was sure my blood was trying to shrink away from her teeth out of my body. Yes, sweetling, we are not in the dance of romance, of courtship. We are engaged in something altogether more interesting. A dance of death, the dance macabre. I am a predator, and you, my love, are pray. By Verena! I struggled against my binds, but she was too strong. The ropes were too strong. My weakness and my fear bundled against her primal hunger and lust. That bookish whore cannot save you. She cackled in my ear. Even then it sounded sweet. Every word she said was thick, dampening oil seeping into my ears. Oh, I love how they struggle. It's so beautiful. You can't. Someone will come looking for me. Oh, please, the fourth child of some dead noble line. You, my love, are a cast-aside scrap of dinner that the Empire was gracious enough to throw my way. I tried to protest against her once more, but it was too late. Her hands gripped wherever they pleased. Even amidst my horror, I was blushing like mad. And then it happened. A bite. Ice and pain radiated across my neck. Something between a scream and a moan between my lips escaped, and her soothing laughter radiated across my ears. My energy slowed, brought down by the strange biology of her act. My eyes seemed to glass over, and I struggled no longer. I can't remember when or how the binds left my wrists, but I held on to her. She was killing me, draining me, and I held on. A final surge of energy, a final burst of feeling that racked my nerves from end to end, and finally, darkness came. I woke up in a scream, the dark of the room illuminated purely by moonlight. The candles burnt out. I could barely make out the darkness. I was sure I was in some facsimile of the bedroom, and that right outside the door would be Moore's eternal garden. Am I dead? I asked the void. Moore never answered, but she did, from the shadows. Of course not. No, you aren't undead either. But stand up. She spoke. My body seized and did what it was told. All I could feel was the cold of the room. Excellent. You've taken well. What did you do to me? A bit of Olgu and vampiric influence. Indeed, the Olgu was really all that was needed, but... She stepped out of the shadows. A corseted dress, replete with plate armor leggings and an ornate shoulder collar. Gods, was she beautiful. She smiled, and I saw trails of my own blood on her chin. Her fangs glinted in the moonlight. I couldn't resist, you know. So then, why? Why what? Why am I alive? Ah, an interesting question. A foreigner like you poses many useful applications. And you are a lesser noble, no less. Something that should get you through checkpoints and other such roadblocks. I need you to spread the word, to visit places of note, of caliber, and of exoticism, and tell them what I told you, what I will tell you. That Manfred von Karstein is Lord of Sylvania, and that he has returned. But wouldn't that bring the Empire down on him? She only smiled. It's not your place to question, only your place to obey. She pointed a single finger, and my body seized. And you will obey, won't you? Yes, mistress. The words weren't mine, but they left my mouth, and my mind agreed to them all the same. I will call for you when you have performed sufficiently. From there, we shall meet in a Kendorf, that's right below Blackfire Pass. We shall then travel west, and from then on, it's not your place to ask why. Yes, mistress? Oh, don't look so glum. Her control was lifted for but a moment as she enveloped me in a kiss. I hated her, but I was infatuated with her. I couldn't resist, and I was so weak. For the first time in my life, I pled, Sigmar, forgive me. You work for a true purpose, pet. Your life was meaningless anyway. Better to turn it for the better, A final kiss,
a taste of my own blood on her lips. We both seemed to linger there, addicted to the taste. And when she broke it off, she seemed almost a little sad. I shook the thought away, as if vampires could feel such things. I will leave you to prepare. You will find your pack downstairs, filled with adequate supplies. Take care, Fräulein von Siert. A bow from her, and the door closes. The moment I feel her presence leave the building, I kneel down to pray. I prayed to Verena, Tal, Raya, Moore, Renaud, even to Sigmar, Ulrich, and Cain, but it mattered not. No matter who I prayed to, the gods do not look upon Sylvania. The gods were dead in Sylvania. The vampire counts controlled all, and I, like the peasants of this land, were born to obey them.